Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, good afternoon. Once again, I am not James Owen. I am filling in for James as he's on his trip. And before we start, why don't we take a look and see where our leader is located at the present time. This is live stream, so this is exactly where he's at. So, Bill, what are you thinking? We're thinking he's right around Birmingham, Alabama, right?
Yep.
And at last time we checked, he was doing about 85 miles an hour. So that's where he's at. And all you have to do is go on the link that Bill sent out earlier in the week. Here we go. Here's his stats. He's currently doing 87.74. 87.74. He's at 136 feet of elevation. Obviously, he's in the south, and he's heading southwest, 303 degrees, west northwest. So yeah, lots of fun to be able to watch him go across there. So 1,000 miles a day, Janet. That's a big trip, huh? One other thing I want to bring to your attention. Last night I went onto the Kiwanis International website to see if there was anything of interest and value I might be able to bring to the meeting today. And looking up in the upper right-hand corner of the front page of the website, we see this picture right here, which I think you'll all recognize. And if you can't read it from the back there, it says, when a fire in Pennsylvania destroyed multiple homes, Kiwanis members jumped into action. And this story, long story, and Bill's kind of scrolling through it right now, mentions, of course, Bill and James and Janet and everybody who was involved the day of handing over the money to the unfortunate victims of this. It's a great in-depth story, and I guess, all right. Well, we're going to open up the meeting here, so why don't we stand, say the pledge, and Barb, will you kick off God Bless America for us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Word of inspiration today. Barb is going to provide that for us.
Today is the first day of summer. If you didn't know it, I forget what time it started, but it is the first day of summer. And one quote is, "I love how summer just wraps its arms around you like a warm blanket." And that's sweet. And this one, I think, will ring true with most people. A perfect summer day is when the sun is shining, the breeze is blowing, the birds are singing, and the lawnmower is broken.
Oh, very good. Kind of forgot about today being the first day of summer. That's great. So Jessie Shappell.
I'm the CEO and Executive Director.
Close enough.
Yep.
All right. CEO, Executive Director of Equi-librium, therapeutic riding and horsemanship program. Got a great website too. Equi-librium is a 501c3 domiciled in Nazareth, with the majority of their participants residing in Northampton County. They provide equine assisted therapies and activities to individuals with physical, developmental, and behavioral challenges. And were recently premier accredited by the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship International. So it sounds like you do great work there. So Jessie, I'll turn it over to you. They may bring lunch
All right.
while you're presenting, but we're all used to kind of doing the lunch while we listen to your presentation.
That works.
Take all the time you need.
So thank you for the introduction. My name is Jessie Shappell. I'm the Executive Director and CEO at Equi-librium. And so today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about what we do at Equi-librium and answering any questions that you might have. Feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions, because otherwise I will just keep talking. And most of my presentation is pictures of horses. So in a nutshell, Equi-librium, our mission is providing individuals the opportunity to reach their highest potential through the benefits of horse-related activities and therapies, which is kind of a mouthful. Really the majority of what we're doing is we're serving people of all ages with physical, developmental, and mental health challenges and disabilities through the benefits that horses can provide through therapeutic programs, physical fitness programs, and mental health programs as well. So our history, Equilibrium started also up in the West End of Monroe County in 1981. So that was actually before my time, but as a collaboration between two nonprofits. They were between Monroe County 4-H and Easter Seals. And that spirit of collaboration has continued throughout the past 40 plus years in everything that we do. In 2001, we became an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization, mostly because of outgrowing what could be done by other organizations just putting it together as a program. It really needed to be its own organization with its own mission. So about 10 years ago, we moved down to the Lehigh Valley. We were up in the West End of Monroe County, and what we were seeing is a lot of the participants coming in were coming in through referrals, particularly from doctors, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and a lot of those were coming from down here. So when they were looking for a place to land for a permanent home for the program, for the horses, they settled on Nazareth being the perfect location. They were looking really that stretch of 33 between, Easton and Nazareth, so that we could still keep serving the Monroe County folks, but also be down here in Northampton County where a lot of that need was. Still today, that's primarily what we see. Most of our participants are coming from Northampton County, again, along that stretch of 33 for the most part. So we see a lot from Easton, a lot from Nazareth, really more than any other group. After that, really Monroe County, Lehigh County are kind of tied for that second place. So we are very local in our scope, but then we do have participants coming to us from as far as Carbon County, Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, some in New Jersey as well. Today, as we had mentioned kind of in the introduction, we are premier accredited by the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship International. So what that is, and we refer to it as PATH for short, they are the international governing body, education, resource, research for therapeutic horsemanship, because it is in and of itself its own field with a lot of subfields attached to it, especially when we're dealing with physical health, we're also dealing with mental health as well. So in the Lehigh Valley, Equilibrium is the only therapeutic riding or horsemanship facility to be accredited. We're the only accredited program within kind of our general radius, which is why, again, we're getting not just the participants from around here, but we are seeing some people traveling as well. Once you get down outside of Philly a little bit more, you'll have more centers with that accreditation. Same within New Jersey, but really from here on up and moving out to the west a little bit too, we are it. What that accreditation means is that one question that we always get, and I just had someone on a tour the other day mention it, that was kind of their first impression, is that we're not just people who are with good intentions, but who are just kind of using horses, putting kids on horses, or using horses just to make people feel better when they're sad, which is sometimes a lot of what we do, but that's not all that we do. So that accreditation means that we are upholding our programs and our staff to the highest standards in safety, horse care, and the quality of the programs. So a lot of our programs are incorporating a medical professional or a mental health professional, and those are all being conducted up to those accreditation standards. So we serve individuals of all ages. Another common misconception is that it's just children. About half of our participants are children, and the other half are adults with special needs. Resources and programs available here in the Lehigh Valley to children with special needs are a lot more vast than those for adults. So that's really an area where we continue to maintain a lot of our focus, because even as far as funding sources, those kind of resources, really as soon as people turn 21, a lot of those go away, a lot of what was available to them when they were younger. With that being said, we do about half of our participants are children. We have kids start as young as 2 years old. And we'll talk a little bit about the programs that we offer and the differences between those programs. But a lot of those 2- and 3-year-olds are coming in for occupational therapy, utilizing the horse, generally through early intervention referrals for specific purposes, working with our OTs or PTs. And then we have participants up into their 80s as well, and everywhere in between. We're currently estimating this year that we're going to have between 250 and 300 unique participants by the time the year is done. And that is in addition to public school children served by our education programs. So we do have an educational program where either we go out to the schools with a miniature horse, or they will come like as a field trip group to our farm for that educational experience. And this past year, we met with about 1,000 public school kids. So our number when we're talking about the participants served is not including those. They're generally coming maybe once or twice. The other participants that we're talking about are ones who are coming for at least one 10-week session, if not throughout the entire year. Equilibrium staffing. So I'm the executive director. We have a very volunteer-based program. So what that means is we have many, many more volunteers than we have paid staff. Administratively, there's myself. We have an administrative assistant as well. And then we've got a program director who manages the programs and an equine director who manages the horses. They're going to have those instructors, those physical therapists, those occupational therapists, and the horse care and facility staff underneath them, and the rest are volunteers. So we have also, we're saying about 250 to 300 participants. We are well into around 300 volunteers each year to make our programs happen and to make, the facility upkeep happen. Our farm is an 18-acre property. We're in Bushkill Township, and it is old. So it is a wonderful property. 18 acres is a lot of space, but it has been a farm for a very long time, and our buildings date back to the 1850s. So there is never a limit on facilities-related projects for volunteers to do, even if they have no interest in working with horses or with participants with special needs. So a little bit about volunteers. Even the time that this presentation was created, we said 200 volunteers, absolutely up to closer to 300. Currently for this summer, we have 175 volunteer slots every single week. And that's just to make our programs run. So that does not include horse care and facilities. So why so volunteer intensive? Number one reason is safety. So the number one priority in everything that we do is safety, because if we are putting individuals with who are physically compromised, with physical disabilities, with maybe communication difficulties as well, on the back of a 1,000-pound animal with a mind of its own, that can be unsafe if it is not done correctly. And that's really, again, going back to that accreditation, the certifications of our instructors. That's why that is paramount to us because of that safety component. The volunteers are there primarily for safety too. So every single, unless they are really independent riders, which most are not, everyone is going to have a leader who's responsible for the horse in a lesson. If it's an independent rider, that leader might not be attached to the horse with a lead line, but they are there in case something were to go wrong. They are the closest person and the person responsible for that horse. With horses, a lot of things could go wrong. It could thunder and lightning, and a horse is going to spook, perhaps. A participant could have a medical emergency on a horse. It is very important that every horse that's in that arena has a volunteer designated to that horse. For the participant side, we have side helpers. So for participants who do have more significant physical disabilities, those side helpers are going to be taking on a more active physical role. All of our volunteers are very specifically trained as well to the roles that they're doing. So for some of these participants, it might be things including like a physical hold to help them with their balance on the horse. A lot of the participants will wear a belt then that can be held onto or grabbed onto if needed. But a lot of times, a lot of our participants don't necessarily need that degree of physical intervention, and the side helper is just there, again, for safety. Should something happen, that is one person who is closest to that participant, and their sole focus is that participant. All of the lessons are led by a certified therapeutic riding instructor. So all of our riding instructors are certified through PATH. They're all credentialed, but again, they are one person. And generally, a lot of our mounted or riding lessons and programs, they're being conducted in groups. So, and there's a couple reasons for that. And most of it is the benefit of being in a group and the social aspect. But we're talking about 3 or 4 participants in the arena at once. So that instructor is certainly the center of it all and is the one managing and leading the program. but those volunteers are the ones who are going to be the closest hands. So in addition to the working with the program, again, we will have people who come in who have no horse experience at all, and they want to be doing something either in the office, on our board, maintenance work, things like that. We always have those projects as well too. And here's just some of our volunteers. We'll get volunteer groups sometimes come out too to do specific one-off projects. And then we have volunteers who stay with us for a much longer period of time, kind of for that maintenance, or again, program volunteers. Number one question that we usually get is about our horses. So we'll talk a little bit about them. We currently have 15 therapy horses on the farm, and then we have 2 that live off the farm with our program director. So what makes a therapy horse different than a normal horse or a regular horse? It is not the breed of the horse, it is not the age of the horse, and it is not the size of the horse. We have a variety of all of those things, probably less so in the age category, but very much so in the breed and size of the horses. We have everywhere from a very large Percheron cross gelding to a very, very small miniature horse, everything in between, and all different breeds of horses. There is not one particular breed that makes a horse a good therapy horse. It's all in the temperament and the training. So horses are naturally prey animals. They are fight-flight animals. So if something startles them, their instinct is to run. That is the opposite of what we want them to do. So for a lot of these horses, we are looking for very special horses, and they are being very specially trained for their job, because a lot of the questions that they're being asked go kind of against that natural instinct. So how do we find these horses that would work for this? The horses that we're getting, this is generally not their first career. This is not their first rodeo, so to say. So again, we are talking about participants, on the backs of these horses who might not have physical balance. They might have involuntary body movements. They might make loud noises. There could be a lot of loud noises. There are a lot of external stimuli in the arena when one of these lessons is happening. That can be a lot for a horse, but not for horses like this. So we have horses that are ex-rodeo horses and ex-show horses. Again, you're thinking these horses have been in big crowds. They've traveled all over the place. The sights, the smells, the sounds, none of that bothers them. Some of you might have seen some of the recent press about George, who is been recently retired from the Bethlehem Mounted Patrol. When the Bethlehem Mounted Patrol started back up, he was one of their original horses on the mounted police. And he served on the police force for 10 years before being retired. And he needed a job in retirement. He is not the kind of horse who wants to just graze out in a field for the rest of his days. So for him, again, this horse has managed Music Fest. So if he can do that, what we're asking of him is nothing. And then, of course, you also see some heavily decorated horses here. We have horses who have come from medieval times and the Renaissance fair circuits. They are ex-jousting horses. So they are used to having people heavily clad in armor, leaning off the sides of them, swinging swords around. What we're doing when we're having a participant throw a ball back and forth, or reach to one side, reach to the other, do some stretches, are not things that are going to bother these horses. So that is, generally, I love when people do come to the farm for a tour, because every single one of these horses has a very unique backstory. And they're not all being used for every program we're offering either. I'll talk a tiny bit about our programs and the difference between them. And we have horses that are used for some and not all. We have horses that are riding horses primarily, and then we have some who drive carts and wagons instead. So it really is a pretty big variety, but it's that temperament that they all have in common. Before I talk a little bit more about our programs, does anyone have any questions about the horses? Yes.
So are the horses are expensive, right?
Yes, they are.
Do
They are very high maintenance.
they stay relatively healthy? I mean, do you have a lot of health issues with the horses, or?
Yeah,
I have 15 of them, so there's going to be some outliers here and there.
absolutely. So a lot of that goes into preventative maintenance, which of course that does cost money too, but a lot of that can prevent some of those emergencies. So our horses, they go out at night. So they are turned out from about 6:30 at night, or whenever they're done with lessons, until about 9 o'clock in the morning the next morning, which gives them the most amount of time outside, grazing, eating grass, moving around and socializing, which is what's best for them. Then they're also getting hay and grain on top of that. They're getting regular vet care, they're getting farrier, they're getting dentists. We thankfully have some people who will volunteer and donate their time, a vet who does some chiropractic and acupuncture too. So these horses are really being maintained to the very highest level, as if they were performance horses, because they're not doing a lot of cardio like a racehorse would be, but they're doing a lot of work. They're doing a lot of physical work in different ways. With that said, of course, emergencies are going to happen. The air quality the other week really can impact the horses. Thankfully, we only had 1 of 15 really be impacted. He's fine now. That was still a vet visit. Anything like that can happen. Injuries can happen despite the best of intentions and facilities maintenance. So those things are things that we do have to be mindful of with having so many horses, but a lot of the preventative maintenance to go in to make sure that they're at their best health and fitness is really important, and it does help prevent a lot of that. Our programs vary quite a bit. So right up here that I have equine assisted therapy, equine assisted movement. You'll sometimes hear it called hippotherapy, hippo Greek for horse, not hippo like a hippopotamus, although that's also derived from hippo Greek for horse. But that's when we're talking about physical therapists and occupational therapists who are leading the program. We are still having a certified therapeutic riding instructor present for every single one of those lessons, because again, they're the one who's responsible for the horse. But we do have licensed PTs and OTs working with individuals, and these could be children with some physical developmental delays. This could be adults with more significant physical disabilities who really, it's that stretching, it's that movement. The field of therapeutic horsemanship really started with PT. It started with physical therapists who were learning that horses, the movement of the horse, can help get to different muscle groups that are really hard to access in some individuals with disabilities. Particularly, they were working with individuals with cerebral palsy. Sometimes these people might not be able to, on their own, do a sit-up, for instance, to work on that core strength or do a lot of that work. But on the back of a horse, the horse's movement is working those same muscle groups. So this is the basics of everything that we're doing. And that's how the field has evolved from there, is utilizing the horses in physical therapy settings. The majority of what we do falls under adaptive riding or therapeutic riding. And when we're talking about kind of our average participant, there is no average. So there's no one size fits all. Generally, our participants come to us with at least one diagnosis. Over 75% come with 2 or more diagnoses. That could be, if you were to reduce it down to just those medical diagnoses alone, that could be any combination of diagnoses, of challenges. And that's before you get into things like, this child is also in the foster care system. This individual has also been the victim of domestic and partner violence. So these diagnoses are coming in on their own before you get into any of the rest of the stuff that could be there. So with that said, everything is extremely individualized. All of our programs, we're looking to the caregivers, the parents, or the participants themselves, working with their physicians, working with their educators to come up with a plan that is very specific to them and their goals. Goals are set at the beginning of every 10-week session and are maintained and reevaluated throughout. It is not always a good idea to have somebody on the back of a horse. And that is also sometimes a misconception that, okay, we are doing therapy. Horseback riding is good for everyone. Everyone can benefit. That is not always true. And what's more so is that is not always safe. So there are some individuals who it is not safe to put them up on the back of that horse for a variety of reasons. And so what we do, and we are one of the only centers in Pennsylvania to offer it, is therapeutic carriage driving. We have a wagon that you can kind of see pictured here that has a hydraulic lift, so that wheelchair participants are able to stay in their wheelchairs if they cannot transfer out or they do not wish to transfer out, and still utilize a lot of those same benefits by driving in the cart instead. So we do have certified therapeutic driving instructors. We do have horses that are specifically trained for this purpose as well, not only as driving horses, but to also stand and be patient while that hydraulic lift is lifting the wheelchair in, the participant is getting secured, and then again, the opposite on the way back out. And then we have a variety of other programs. So we are the official training center for the Northampton County Special Olympics equestrian team. They go to the state finals each year. Last year, the world championships were held in the United States, which was nice. And we did have one participant go down to Orlando for that. We do vocational training for individuals with disabilities. We have, for some of our more advanced participants, we've started doing, in addition to Special Olympics, some kind of horse show type experiences. And we had participants compete this year at the Devon Horse Show, which is a very famous horse show in their therapeutic riders division. Again, we have participants who cannot walk and cannot talk and cannot communicate. And we also have participants on the very opposite end of that spectrum, where if you were to look from the outside in at a lesson, it's going to look very similar to a very traditional riding lesson. The differences being that these instructors have that disability education on top of the horse education and experience. A little bit about what we're doing now to finish up: mental health. Equilibrium started just like the field of therapeutic horsemanship started, primarily physical therapists working with participants with cerebral palsy and physical disabilities. We have continued to significantly evolve from that time. So we are still serving that population, but what we've seen in the past 2 years in particular is the need for mental health services. We have started working with LBHN in particular, but with other nonprofit groups as well on mental health services. So we have for a long time partnered with Turning Point, we partner with Bloom, we partner with the Children's Home of Easton, with Mainstay United on programs specific to their individual participants. So again, we're talking there, maybe we're not looking at individuals who have goals and objectives that are somehow tied into a diagnosis or a physical challenge, but individuals who are coming in with life experiences that the area where they need some help. Building confidence, building relationship skills, self-esteem, communication skills, that sort of thing. But what we were able to do last year for the first time is really go beyond that. Here's just some of our collaborations, which I can talk about too, but really go beyond that. And we hired a mental health professional for the first time. So we do have PATH certified equine specialists in mental health and learning, but we brought on a licensed psychotherapist, a doctor of psychology, to really be leading and conducting these programs, because we saw that that was continuing to be a need, especially with kids and teenagers, that age range right around 13 or so in particular. During the pandemic, this was a group that did not fare so well from a mental health side. Nobody did, but particularly this group. And so what we were seeing and what we were hearing from these referring psychiatrists and psychologists as well was that these were kids whose school was now online. School was being conducted behind a computer screen. If they were getting in to see a mental health provider, it was through telehealth behind a computer screen. Their socialization was behind a computer screen, and they were so screened out that they were looking for something, anything to get them outside, interacting in a different way, because they were really declining. And that's what we still see now, even this many years after the beginning of the pandemic. So we started, thanks to some grant funding at the very beginning of 2022, developing this program, piloted it at the end of 2022 with this psychotherapist in place, and then we're able to grow it so that this year, this program was accredited as well, making it the first equine-assisted psychotherapy program in the Greater Lehigh Valley and Pocono area to have that accreditation. So again, this is being led by a mental health provider, assisted by an equine specialist in mental health and learning. Because again, the last thing that you want to do is have this psychiatrist or psychologist coming in and working with these kids who are in crisis and saying, also, you have to manage 3 horses too. That's just not safe. It's not practical. So it is really a much more involved program than some of our others might be. It is continuing this summer and continues to grow. It is really our fastest growing and highest demand program, and also one of our most challenging because it's new to us. So we are continuing to use those resources from our mental health professional on our staff, consulting with the mental health professionals at LVHN who really have helped with a lot of the referral process, and others at other nonprofit organizations as well who are doing kind of similar work or working with similar demographics too. And then some of what we're doing involves our mini horses, and it really blends together into community outreach, but also educational programs and bringing some of those mental health benefits out into the community. So currently we have 4 miniature horses. 2 of them live on property, 2 of them live off property with our program director. And we bring them out into the community. So they are the ones who go to schools for the educational programs, but they also go to community events and other nonprofits as well. One thing we started seeing this year is we had colleges contacting us and asking to contract with us to bring these horses, just like you hear about the therapy dogs, but around finals time, around move-in time, we're already getting calls because what they're seeing is they have these stressed out college students who are not functioning well. And these are not just kids who are just normal stress. They're seeing really an overwhelming amount in their mental health services of these young adults and older teenagers who are not doing well. Coming out of the pandemic, now they're in college, now they're trying to do all of this and it's in person and everything's different and they are getting overwhelmed. And so having us bring these horses in, benefits from a mental health side is that horses and animals in general have been proven to lower blood pressure, cortisol levels, so the stress hormone, when people are around them, and really help decrease that feeling of loneliness and just stress in general. So is it a magic solution? No. But one thing that they can also do that's really great and that we see in our psychotherapy program on the farm is they are bringing that temperature of the room down. And sometimes that's all they're doing, but sometimes in order for this psychologist or mental health provider to be successful, that's enough. So they're helping to break down those barriers between the teenager and the mental health provider more quickly so that that treatment can be more effective more quickly. Rather than it being awkward first interactions where a teen is sitting there and talking to an adult that they don't know. The horses being there helps really decrease that stress level and also that overall comfort level. And here's one of our little horses out in the community. And here's our other one. Star here is our mascot. He is very small. He is smaller than most dogs. Our other miniature horses are a lot bigger than him, which is actually very typical for miniature horses, but Star is just super small. So that's really what he does. He does drive a cart too, but he mostly goes out into the community. So we are a nonprofit organization. Fundraising covers about 2/3 of all of our expenses. So that means that program revenue only covers about 1/3. We are not, so the true cost, and so this is just talking about program operations. The true cost of program is about 3 times more than even the highest paying individual is going to be paying for services. Generally, participants are going to be paying between 0 and 40% at the highest amount for the actual service that they are receiving, depending on the individual and if they're coming in through a group, how they're being referred, whether they're coming in as just a self-referral or whether they're coming in through a Turning Point or a Bloom or an LVHN mental health referral. They could be paying nothing. And it really just depends. And it depends on the program structure, the funding that's in place between us, collaborative grants with some of these other nonprofits. But realistically, even at the highest tier, nobody is paying enough to cover the costs. And that's where fundraising comes in. So we do a lot of grant funding, really helps. Private donations really do a lot. And then we have some events each year. Our polo event is held right down the street from here every year and is a very fun event. They shut down the Braden Air Park and turn it into a polo field. And it is not our horses doing polo. They do a lot of things. They do not know how to play polo, but we do have some friends locally who do compete in polo in a much broader scale. We don't have any polo events in the Lehigh Valley except for this one. So it's really exciting for them. It's exciting for fans of the sport and even people who know nothing about it. That's how they come and show their support for Equilibrium, and that's our biggest fundraiser. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. Yes.
Kind of a twofold question. Are all these clients, I guess, are they just daily clients, or do you have housing to keep them over? And do you have like camps that people could just stay at for a period of time?
Yeah, so right now everything is just day only. Nobody stays over at the farm for programs or services. So the way that we structure it is we break up the year into 4 10-week sessions, and then we do summer camps then too. But again, they're just day camps. Our summer camps are all inclusive. So we'll have participants in our summer camps who have special needs, and then we will have some who do not. So it is a diverse group, whereas generally most of our other programs are going to be specific to individuals either with special needs or, again, looking at that mental health side. Some of those other kind of more complex challenges that come with that. But yeah, everything is just kind of come for the day, come for the hour as of right now.
I wonder if you could just tell us what would a typical day be like for a client coming in? Let's say it's somebody that had a movement disorder. When that person arrives, what happens over the course of that day? How long is the day for them?
Yeah, so typically most participants are at the farm for about an hour. Now that could be more, they can, depending on the program, but I'd say between an hour and an hour and a half is typical, and they come once a week. Some come twice a week, but generally it's about an hour to an hour and a half. And when they arrive, depending on the participant, some we do have arrive earlier because of the transition. We have a space off of our indoor arena, which is our main program area, where everyone kind of comes in, and that is like our staging area. That's our transition area. We keep it's a little bit darker in there. It's cooler, it's quiet, because coming onto a farm can be a big sensory experience. And so this is kind of our quiet area away from it all. And so some participants do take a long time with that. And so they will come sooner. Some of them, even things like getting the helmet on their head is a process. So those are those things they would be coming sooner, so that they can be there, they can get settled, then we can get the helmet on, maybe get the belt on if they need a belt too, and they have some time to settle with that. Then what they're going to do, if it's a group lesson, then there's going to be 3 or 4 participants. If it's a private, then it's just going to be 1. All of our PT and OT are all privates, and then depending on the program, it might be a group. So the instructor will always come in, volunteers will have the horses ready. Some programs, the participants will be helping get the horses ready. It depends on the program and their objectives. But say there's somebody who has a more significant physical disability, generally the horses are going to be ready. The volunteers will have them in the ring with their assigned tack and equipment. So we do have a lot of adaptive equipment depending on, again, the needs of those individual participants, and that's assigned per individual. So those volunteers will have the horses ready. The instructor comes in, brings the participants out. And then we have a ramp that has, well, we call it the ramp, but it essentially has a ramp on it too, so that participants can walk up the ramp or up the stairs to get onto it. The horses are loaded in kind of like a chute. It is a whole production. Again, it's for safety to minimize the movement. Some of these mounts take a while. So depending on the participant, if they're transferring out of a wheelchair, if they have other equipment like a walker, like crutches, it's going to be more involved, and it's going to take a couple of minutes to get them on the back of the horse. Once everybody is on their horse, then the program begins, and that goes for about 45 minutes. And then it's kind of the same song and dance at the end then for the dismount, getting them off of the horse, and that transition back out.
And then would a therapist, if there was a therapist involved, see them following that equine component?
So typically, if there's a therapist involved, the therapist is going to be involved during the entire equine component. So in that case, you're going to have the leader for the horse, you're going to have the side helpers taking more of a physical role, and the therapist is there for the entire, really driving the activities. So we've got the certified instructor there who, is keeping track of the horse, making sure that everything being asked of the horse is safe, but that therapist is driving the activities. So they're the ones who are going to be doing the physical manipulations, going out on, we have a sensory trail with different obstacles and activities, selecting what activities they're going to be doing, monitoring all of that. They are there with the participant on the horse the entire time. Yes.
Are there fees for the participants?
Yeah, so that it depends. So I'd say generally, if someone is coming in and they're a self-refer, then yes, they are going to have a fee for service, which is going to cover about a third of the true cost of the service. So for every participant that comes in, we have to fundraise more to have more participants come in. Some are not paying anything. And a lot of those are ones who are coming in through a referral, through a collaboration with another nonprofit, coming in under a collaborative grant. And then sometimes even we will have self-refer clients who still end up not paying anything because of resources that we have that we can hook them up with. So depending too, and some of that unfortunately is diagnosis specific, but we are a referring agency to a couple of different resources, including some through Easter Seals, where participants, again, depending on the age, on the diagnosis, on the financial need, can apply. And some of that goes through, they might be getting county or government funding. A lot of times it's through these other nonprofits or resources available, and they end up coming at no cost.
Well, Jessie, thanks so much for coming. That was a
Thank
great
you.
presentation. And I don't think too many people are aware of your wonderful organization up there. So Jessie has an entire lunch to eat here, so she'll be around for additional questions if you have any. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bill, I guess you can ring the bell to close the meeting.